Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Goddess of the Week. And the Goddess of the Week this week is the Babylonian Akkadian goddess Ishtar, who is the goddess of procreation, fertility, love, marriage, the fates, and war. So this is going to be very interesting. And her three facets, she comes in as the lover, she comes in as the warrior, and she also comes in as the keeper of sacred prostitution or sacred sex, which we're going to be talking about a little bit today. And one of the things that I did channel with goddess Ishtar is really bringing forth the importance of self-care for your sacral chakra. Namaste, Bridget. Nice to meet you, goddess Bridget. So I'm just gonna wait for a little bit for a few more people to come in. And as you can see this week, as I do every week, I connect with the faces of the goddess and I ask for them to channel themselves through me, and hearts to you too. And Ishtar's energy, thankfully I'm feeling really playful and just really lighthearted and not really caring so much for how do I put it, the sense of do I need to give or overgive, which is something that Ishtar talks about. And I'm going to show you her card because there's a few people in already. And this is her card, Ishtar, which is about boundaries. And she says, love yourself enough to say no on others' demands of your time and your energy. So this week is about setting boundaries, and one of the things that Ishtar wanted me to bring forth is the attitude of no, and saying no, and no as in like a really sexy no. So I have a few no's that I'm going to be sharing. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you here, Goddess of the Week. We're talking about Goddess Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and sacred sex, and keeping healthy boundaries. So I'm going to go through with my notes. And so the essence of Ishtar, she is the essence or the life force energy of procreation and fertility, of love. And she's also known as the goddess of fate. So back in the Babylonian days, men and women would go to the temple of Ishtar if they were looking for a lover or a husband or a wife. And they believed that praying to Ishtar, she actually had the power to move. She's the power that moves lovers to be attracted to each other. And it's sort of when you're in this new relationship or you meet this new person and there's this magnetic energetic energy where you're just attracted to this person, you're just really into this person. So Ishtar is that power that connects us together, right? She's also the goddess of marriage. Like I said, the men and women that would go to the temples and put their offering to Ishtar in order to be matched up, right? That's where I need to go, Kathy. Well, you can create an altar, and I'm going to get to that later on into the Goddess of the Week, in ways that you can actually connect with Ishtar and bring her energy into your life. So, as I always love to do, and these are actually, it's really interesting because I've realized my Goddess of the Week is sort of like a little summary of the Sacred Shakti Oracle deck that I'm in the process of creating with the goddesses right now. So one of the things that I do have in the Sacred Shakti Oracle deck, And I'm creating this from the standpoint of me being a student of the goddess for so many years and understanding the obstacles and the difficulties to be able to research and find and then experience with the goddesses. There are many different aspects and how to connect to them. So it's really cool because it's almost like I feel like I've been on this quest for so many years, and now I have this knowledge and this information, and I get to condense it into like the things that really stuck out to me and the things that really helped me the most. And or I should say a few of those things were learning how to work with their gemstones, learning how to work with the different colors of the goddesses, and learning how to work with their symbols. So for Goddess Ishtar, if you already have these gemstones, or you can take a note of them if you don't have them and you feel attracted to them, is lapis lazuli, garnet, tiger's eye, carnelian, which is one of my favorites, and moonstone. So her symbols are the 8 and the 16 pointed star, but the 8 pointed star is the more popular one. Lions, owls, dragons, and bundle of reeds. So the reeds would be, you would want to braid the reeds into, it reminds me of the sweetgrass and how the sweetgrass is plaited. So these are things you can use to set up on your altar, or you can wear as sacred jewelry, because I'm so huge on sacred jewelry. I believe every goddess and every awakened conscious woman should understand the power of harnessing simple things like symbols and colors and gemstones, and to be able to incorporate that and to wear that to empower you, and not only just empower you, understanding that these colors and these symbols and these gemstones carry a certain vibration, that when you were to wear it and you were to hold it with you, it actually integrates into your own vibrational frequency and gives you that boost. So not only do you look sexy and you look awesome physically to the physical eyes, on a vibrational level you're getting so much more, and you're actually adding light frequency and more beauty into your aura. So that's really important. So she is known as the morning star, and she's known as the evening star. And if we were to look at the essence of Ishtar in the Babylonian sense, because there are so many faces of the goddesses that are interpreted through different cultures and different civilizations, Ishtar would be the Babylonian version of Aphrodite, which is the Greek goddess of love. They both share, yes, sacred Julie. Namaste, Zoe, thanks for popping in. So Venus, who is the Roman goddess, Aphrodite would be the Greek version, and Ishtar would be the Babylonian. And so they're all the rulers of the planet Venus, so they carry a lot of that Venus energy, which is the energy of beauty and love, right? So other names for Ishtar, well, actually, the actual meaning of Ishtar means I believe it's the star of heaven, but her other names are the Queen of Heaven, the Lady of the Night, and this comes in with her being the protector of harlots, or the sacred prostitution, which was actually something in her temple, and we're going to be talking about just right now. And she was also known for bedding many, many lovers, right? So the cool thing, I want to share this experience with you guys, because again and again, and I'm going to keep repeating this and always keep repeating this, the goddess is not information that we process in a logical sense. The goddess is about essence, and it's about feeling, and it's about experiencing. So we tend to more experience goddesses with regards to sacred symbolism and the way the universe converses with us, and the goddess chooses to speak with us through her different symbols. For me, a huge one is dreams. She comes into dreams. So for example, I've been sleeping with Ishtar. Yes, I have been sleeping with Ishtar under my pillow. And last night I had this amazing dream where I was back in the Mesopotamian times, and the houses at those times were in the mountains, and they would carve them out. Like they would carve the stairs and carve the rooms of the like the living room and the bedroom and such with like windows. So that was really cool. Be back for the replay. Okay, Dawn, thank you for popping in. And the funny thing about that time, in the Mesopotamian time, that Ishtar really wanted me to bring forth was the communal living. That's something that's not really prominent in modern society, where everything, you know, it's commercialized and there's money exchange. We don't really sort of batter within the community or within the families and friends anymore. But communal living was a really huge thing. And the thing about Ishtar, if I have to sort of bring her into the essence of who she is, when I think of Marvin Gaye and that song Sexual Healing, that is the essence of Ishtar, in the sense that our sacral chakra, which is responsible for the life force energy of our sexual and creative force. So, and I'm actually going to get into that later. I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because there's so many things that I want to share. And so back to the communal living. In those times in Babylonia, it didn't matter, in the temple of Ishtar, it didn't matter if you wanted to dedicate yourself as a sacred prostitute. It didn't matter if you were the baker's daughter, or if you were well off, or if you were from a royal family. If you wanted to be initiated into the temple of Ishtar and you wanted to activate that sexual, life-giving, procreating energy, all the women, it didn't matter what their status was, they had to go into the temple and they would get dressed up and wear perfumes and their jewelry and stuff. And they would sit. Hi, Joy. Nice to see you here, Joy. Thank you for joining. Hi, Colleen. Lovely to see you too. Oh my God, all my goddesses are here tonight. Awesome. And in this temple, they would have to sit around the temple, and men would come up to them, and the men would offer a tribute. So that tribute would be in the form of shells or gemstones or golden coins, because there wasn't any Interact and MasterCards and Visa and checks and PayPal. Namaste, Julie. Oh my God, another goddess sister. This is awesome. Woohoo, goddess party. And so in this temple, they would receive the tribute that the man would offer to them, and then they would lay with the man and they would make love. And after they make love and they have their orgasm, that would be the initiation. That would be your initiation into the temple of Ishtar, which would be owning your sensuality and owning your power to give. Right? To give life and to procreate and to feel pleasure and such. So, oh, and I forgot to give you guys the colors. So the colors, if you want to connect with Ishtar, the colors are gold and blue, which I'm wearing here, and then red, which is on my lips. So her colors are gold, blue, and red. If you want to connect with her, a simple thing would be, like me, I love channeling the goddesses through makeup, or you can wear a scarf or a dress. I'm wearing blue and white here, and hold these colors into your vibration to really get her essence to channel through. And when you know you're channeling and you know you're in your goddess energy is when you're just feeling this heightened sexiness. For example, with Ishtar, or if it were Kuan Yin, you'd feel this heightened sense of compassion. And so this is how you know you're actually in your goddess. It's almost like HD feelings. You have HD feelings of love, or HD feelings of passion, or, you know, HD feelings of pleasure. So one of the things with sacred prostitution, with the temple of Ishtar, is that every woman knew that her body, so you know when they say your body is your temple, her body is the vessel for the goddess. So in the sacred act of what they called sacred marriage or sacred lovemaking, this is when the priest and the priestess, and this was done publicly, by the way. The priest and the priestess will get together and they would begin in their lovemaking ceremony while other people were dancing and drinking, and because other people love making, so I guess we can say an orgy per se. And you have to understand, these cultures were not bound by the programming that we have now when the patriarchal systems kind of kicked in thousands of years later. I believe Ishtar can be dated back to like 2300 BCE. And she is known as the modern goddess of the Sumerian goddess Inanna. And even though I believe, just from working with the goddesses, I believe Inanna, Ishtar, and Isis, they all have that similar energy. The essence of who they are is the same. It's just the cultures see them in the different faces, just to give you an idea. So the priestesses, they were like, just imagine opening up your legs and your vagina or your yoni is the vortex. It's the vortex of creation. So the priest goes in and they're in this sacred act, and then they're in this lovemaking ritual to the point that they both climax. So the climax energy, or the orgasmic energy, actually vibrates out into the planet, and that's the life-giving energy. So it was actually said that if lovemaking was successful and the priestesses were to have orgasms, that it was a sign that there was going to be a fruitful year for the farmers and the gardeners and for the community as a whole, right? Now, the interesting thing, I'm just looking through my notes, so I've covered all of this. So the interesting thing is, and I'm gonna start off with my story, and I've been really nervous to share this, but this is part of the transparency, right? Ishtar came to me when in the year 2006 or 2007, I believe, because I was a drug addict on crystal meth, so the year seems to be a little blurry. And I was a call girl. I was an escort, or we can use the word prostitute at that time. And I remember just being so high off of my kite, and I was in my underworld. This was like my rock bottom in my life. And I remember walking around, my nights was basically a working girl. I was a lady of the night, and just going to all these different restaurants and hotels and all this stuff. And in the daytime, that would be like the time that I would sleep and, regenerate myself and stuff. And I remembered one afternoon while I was just strolling downtown Toronto, I just remembered Ishtar, 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 Ishtar. And it wouldn't stop, to a point that it drove me to Google, and I needed to Google Ishtar, and understanding that she's the patron goddess of sacred prostitution. So at that time, Ishtar came to me to protect me. When I look back at that story, I mean, being a crystal meth addict on ecstasy, cocaine, meeting all these different men that I didn't know, I could understand, and women, I could understand why she came into my life, to help me to honor the act of sexual healing. And I've actually had to go through a lot of healing after I became sober, and I realized the life path that I had previously lived in the sex industry. And I remember one of my spiritual teachers saying to me, Anjali, society is going to judge because they weren't there. They weren't in that moment with you, in those moments that you were with those people. And to be honest with you, from a person that's been in that lifestyle and fortunate enough to be here over 10 years later to talk about it, it's not what everybody thinks. I remember counseling men with problems with their girlfriends or their wives, or their wives and girlfriends, and listening to them and having them it was sort of like I was a confession girl, where they would just confess everything because they never had to see me again, And so it was the sacred act of not just hearing their pain and hearing their suffering, but being able to comfort them and being able to give them that love through the only way I understood to do it at that time, me being from a sexually abusive background as well. So it's very interesting how I met Ishtar. And so she really protected me throughout this entire thing. And if we were to look at the story of Ishtar, one of the most prominent things about her was the story of her descent to the underworld. And I really want to share this with you guys because you just can't make this stuff up, right? And as I said, I was at my rock bottom. I was also in a relationship with a guy that was a drug addict, and because of him, and thinking, oh, this person really fascinates me. I really care for this person and love this person, so I'm willing to go to hell. I'm willing to go to hell with this person, just to see. No problem, Kathy. I'm as transparent as they come because I understand it's the stories that I sometimes wrestle and I'm ashamed of or I don't want to share. That's the stories that I know that women need to hear, because I know in so many other ways that when we look at the archetype of the sacred prostitute, you may not be prostituting yourself or your body for money, but it can be a job that you're just doing it for the money, or a relationship you're just in for the money, or friendships you're just in for the money and the benefits, right? Yeah, transparent, exactly. And so this would, in a universal way, would apply to everybody in their own little personal story with what I'm sharing. And so there was this guy who was my lover, who was a drug addict, and me too. And it was complete hell. I mean, at this point, I had no boundaries, because my belief back then was if you love someone, they can do anything to you because you love them. So why would you stop them and have boundaries? And then looking at my culture, East Indian culture, if you've looked at any Bollywood movies from the 80s and the 90s into the early 2000s, it was just all narrative of the woman being weak and powerless and the men dominating the woman, and abuse was just normal. It was something I grew up with, not personally my mom and dad, but seeing it within the family and seeing it within the community in the Caribbean, where the boundaries are different based on your ethnic and cultural way, the upbringing, and your geographical location as well. So I was growing up in a third world country, so the boundaries there are just really crazy, in the sense, even up till this day, if I were to be in Trinidad and Tobago and I was married to my husband there, and we got into a fight and he was beating the shit out of me, the police won't do anything because I'm his property. I'm his wife. He can do whatever he wants with me. And this is why I love living in Canada, because these things are not allowed. And so back to my story. So Ishtar descended into the underworld, and into the underworld was where I went to with this particular relationship that I had, where it was really funny. It was almost like, in my mind at that time, I was a working girl and I was paying all the bills and I was supplying all the money for the drugs and everything. He did nothing. He did nothing but reminded me each and every day of what a whore I was, and what all these nasty words. And this was me having no boundaries, no self-esteem, no self-worth, nothing. To a point that we were engaged in a physical fight, and he had grabbed my head, my hair, and pulled me forward and was punching the back of my head. We were both completely high on drugs at that time. And I remember, and this is where boundaries, I mean, thank God for this boundary, that I had the sense enough to value my life at that point, that I was able to dial 911. And I remember everything was a blur. And when I got back into my consciousness, I was curled up in a fetal position on the floor. And I just remember seeing him in handcuffs going into the police car. It's okay, Joy. This has been so long ago. You know, it's almost like I'm turning back the pages of this book and I'm just reading you that particular story in that particular page of that book. So I'm fine, and I'm happy that I'm healed from that. And the cool thing was, it was a few weeks before that incident, before we fought and he got taken away in handcuffs, and I had the courage to value my life enough to call 911. I remember having this dream, and in this dream I was in hell, and there was the devil and there were two thrones, and I was standing next to the devil, and my mother was chained up on a wall, okay? And I remember the devil saying to me, I want you to be my wife. And he said to me, if you don't become my wife, I'm going to kill your mother. And this isn't a dream, right? And I remember in the dream, I agreed and I said yes, because I don't want my mom to die. I love my mom, right? Mom, I love you if you're watching this. And I remember in the dream, the devil stuck his tongue out because he wanted to kiss me. And while he was sticking his tongue out, his eyes were closed, and it was like a lizard tongue with the kind of split, you know, sort of like a snake tongue. And as he stuck his tongue out in my dream, I remember holding on to the bottom of his jaw and the top of his jaw, and I snapped it open, and I snapped his head open, and the chains fell that was chaining my mom to the wall. And I remember throwing my mom over my shoulders and running out of hell, out into like the earth plane. And literally a few weeks later, this is where this fight happened that broke. I was able to break out of the underworld. And mind you, I believe it was 4 months later, I had completely quit doing crystal meth and ecstasy, and just completely, something just came over me and it was gone. So it's very symbolic when you start tracking your dreams and start seeing all the protection with the angels and the goddesses and your spirit guides and your beloved loved ones that's passed on the other side. You know, sometimes we think we're alone and we're not, right? And you save your mom to boot. Haha, yes, the forked tongue joy. Thank you, yes. And so it was really important for me to share that story with you, because that was around the time in my life that Ishtar came to me. And as I said here, it's about boundaries, right? So sometimes and it's normally the people that we really, really, really love, we don't know how to say no to, right? And so I have this quote. And this is a quote that came to me many, many years, and I've wrestled with it for many, many years, and now I agree with Pablo Picasso when he says, there are only two types of women in the world, goddesses and doormats. So if you're not in your goddess, you're being in your doormat. And that's what Ishtar is. Ishtar's energy is really upfront, really straightforward. Like, listen, stop being the victim. You're not a victim. You have the power. You have your sword of truth and love and light, and you can wield this and do whatever you want to do when you need to. There's no need in, saying you can't, or, a lot of us, for women and for the men too, and for the brothers in the tribe too, we have a really hard time saying no, right? So it says here, when you're in your doormat mode, you're tired. You start feeling guilty. And the red flag is when you start feeling resentful towards people that you're helping, and when you're helping others. So that's when you're in doormat mode. That's when you are just giving too much, and what I like to call is the yes slut. You just say, yeah, yes, even when you mean no. Yeah, even when I mean no, right? So goddess mode is saying no when you mean no, and saying yes when you mean yes. And no, in the fact, as Ishtar said to me to share with you guys, no can be sexy, right? In the sense of no, or you know what? Not right now. Or the one that Ishtar really channeled in, and I really love this one. She says, let me consult my intuition. Let me consult my intuition. I'm going to say a no on that for now. Let me consult my intuition and see, is it like a definite no? Or maybe I can go to my intuition and see if there's a possibility that I can do this or not. So it's really about setting boundaries here today. And setting boundaries is having that self-love for yourself to say, hey, you know what? As much as I love you and as much as I care about you, I know what my priorities are. I know what are the things that I need to do. And until I fulfill those things for myself, then I'm going to see if I have that time, where a lot of us get our priorities mixed up. And again, this is based on patriarchal programming, where as women we're taught to serve our husbands, or we start off with serving dad and serving mom and serving our grandparents and aunties and uncle, and then the boyfriend and then the children, and it never stops and it never stops, right? Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, this is really, really important. This is really important when we're walking the path of the goddess, because when we walk the path of the woman, there's a lot of lies in there. There's a lot of untruths in there, which is, sacrifice yourself, give yourself, be the doormat, have everybody walk all over you, and in hopes that somebody would recognize, that you need help. Or, hi, Susan. Hi, namaste. Thank you for coming in, Susan. So, Ishtar is also about, and this is the way she came through to me, and she's like, today or this week or from now, or as you're watching this video, it's time to learn how to break your own boundaries and how to rebuild boundaries. And you're allowed to do that because you have free will. And I like to say to people, we are so powerful that we have free will to even choose death. Okay, and that's the truth, and it's really sad, and I've been seeing a lot of suicide, a lot of really beloved people in this world. Anthony Bourdain for me was a shocker with committing suicide, but that's the truth though. We judge, that's what humans do in our humanness, we judge, but the truth is we are immortal, and we are so powerful that we have the free will to choose death. So let's bring it in and let's look at boundaries. So for example, if you feel like you have a lack of time, how are your boundaries around time with people? Are you able to say, no, let me schedule in, or do you just jump on it, and before you know it, your day's done? Or let's say, for example, if you feel a lack around money, do you just give money to every charity or every person or every family member, not caring about your own savings or your own investments or your own financial well-being, right? So it's about breaking those boundaries and rebuilding those boundaries. A good one would be, and because Ishtar is the energy of sexual energy, is breaking old boundaries. And this I've seen, and it normally happens in two ways. So if you are a man or woman, and I really want to bring in the man or woman, because we all have feminine energy, we all have goddess energy. It doesn't matter if our form is masculine or feminine. And you have experienced sexual trauma. So it can be molestation or rape or sexual assault or, predatory or anything like that. Or if you have been raised in a culture or an environment with programming where sex is suppressed and it's seen as dirty and it's seen as unpure, I think was one of the words I had here. And so Ishtar, in bringing this up, wanted me to really focus and concentrate on the sacral chakra energy, because if your sacral chakra energy is damaged because of past sexual trauma, or because you do have that suppression around sex and feeling pleasure and being open and connected in a sensual way to your sensuality and your sexuality, it's really hard for you. You might have creative blocks. You might not be able to get inspirational, with like new creative projects. You're just in a slump. You're lackluster. You're bored. A big one is sexually frustrated. It's really funny because when I see people getting really mean and cruel, the first thing I laugh and say is, haha, I don't think that person, it's like, did you forget to get a blowjob last night, or did you forget to get the ride? I call love making the ride last night, because you can just see that pent up energy and there's no orgasm, or there's no release, and so there's not a natural flow of energy, right? So working with Ishtar with your sacral chakra. So these are just messages that came through, and I'm just going to read them out from my notes. This is your energy consciousness of emotions and pleasure, sensation and sensuality. And this is your sacral chakra. It influences our ability to enjoy our sensuality and sexuality on the earthly plane, because we are here to procreate. And that's really one of the cool stories about Ishtar, is that when she descended into the underworld, she was actually killed by her sister Yggdrasil, and she was brought back to life later on. But what happened was, when she descended into the underworld, lovemaking stopped on earth, on the earth plane. Nobody was falling in love or making love or anything. Everything ceased to exist. So this is why the gods actually decided to create this mystical beast of a creature to go down into the underworld to get Ishtar, for her to come back up into the earth. So procreation and life-giving energy and lovemaking and joy and pleasure and all these things can be felt again, right? And I know a lot of us, because I've been into parts of my life where I've been very sensual and very sexual and very promiscuous with my sensuality and sexuality. And I remember after getting sober and realizing, as I said, the lifestyle that I led, I was full of shame and full of guilt, and I completely shut myself down and put on all this weight because I associated sexy with that lifestyle, because in that lifestyle my body, was beautiful. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I mean, I've had sexual experiences of going to adult clubs and having orgies, on a couch on stage with a spotlight on me with random people I didn't know. I've had threesomes. I've had, all these different sexual experiences. I think everything that I've wanted to experience on a sexual level, I have. And the ironic thing about it is that now I'm actually experiencing a relationship, what it's like to be in a committed relationship and to focus my energy and my love and attention on one partner. So we have to understand, as men and women, we're not here as cookie cutters, okay? Our souls didn't come here to live cookie cutter lives. And cookie cutter lives as in, what's the myth they say to us girls, right? You save your virginity until you get married and you meet your one true love, and then he'll show you what to do happily ever after. That's like the world's biggest bullshit story, right? And so it says here, if this chakra is damaged due to past sexual trauma or have been suppressed by an upbringing of programmed beliefs of sex being sinful, dirty, shame, and impure. So this is the notes here. It says you can have challenges setting healthy boundaries with beloved ones. So that comes back. That's 50s mentality. And you know what, Joy? The sad thing about it is that there's a lot of cultures, and even now in modern society, the programming hasn't left. Even though the culture is gone, the programming is still being passed on. Because if we haven't done the work to break the cycle, all we do unconsciously, without even knowing and innocently, is pass on the things that we've learned, right? Unless we've unlearned it and then we've broken the cycle, then we can pass a new cycle on to the future children and the future generation. So this is really cool, because this goes to the story that I was saying, that I was in a space where my sacral chakra was completely damaged, that I was in the sex industry, and here I was in this relationship where I was just allowing this person, I was a complete doormat, being, not just his foot getting dust off on me, but picking me up as a mat and beating me up on the wall, right? I mean, the internet is our instrument to achieve this. I really hope so, Joy. Yes, deprogramming. Deprogramming. And so you're going to notice that if you don't have healthy boundaries around your loved ones, like your husband or your boyfriend or, even your mom or your brother, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. You're going to notice that if you really look and observe at your life, who are the people that control your time? Who are the people that control your money? Who are the people that control what you say or how you think and such, right? So we really want to start setting boundaries in the sense of saying, hey, I own my sense of self. I own my beliefs. I own my knowledge. I love you, even though your beliefs and your knowledge is different, and the way of life and your way of life and living is different. But this is the way I wanna roll, right? And I only roll with goddesses. So Ishtar says she loves to be worshipped and adored and revered. She loves her body, she would love for you, to see your body as a sacred vessel of the goddess, and to allow yourself to open up and heal your sense of worthiness, and to enjoy the gifts of womanhood and manhood, and via experiencing sexual pleasure and sexual healing, right? And one of the things I've noticed being in the spiritual community and being around people that are active in the spiritual community for over a decade is the fact that a lot of us, when we get into spirituality, we have the crown chakra open, so we can channel and transmit, we can contact angels and guides and loved ones and goddesses and fairies and unicorns. And then we have the third eye chakra. We work on that a lot, because then we can see visions and psychic visions and aura fields and stuff. Then we work on the throat chakra, so we start talking to each other about all the unicorns and all the mermaids and all the angels and all the goddesses. And then on the heart chakra, we feel the excitement and we feel the love and we feel the joy. But then as we start going down to the solar plexus, it's not that heightened of a frequency, because a lot of us have issues around holding our power and holding our own authority and to be the sovereign of our own lives. And then as we push down into the sacral chakra, a lot of spiritual people I've noticed, and I mean, if you guys saw my video that I had on suffering in silence, I mean, very prominent spiritual people have actually shut me down and be like, that's dirty, you're controversial, what is controversial about talking about your sacral chakra? Your sacral chakra, your heart chakra, your third eye chakra, your root chakra, they're all the same. One is not purer than the other. One's not dirtier than the other. And this is the falsehoods that we've been programmed to, only because teachers of the past too. Remember, a teacher can only teach you based on the limit of what they allow. Right? So, and that's when you have to say to yourself, okay, well, I need to go deeper and I need to dig deeper and I need to trust my intuition on this. And if my intuition and the goddesses are saying, hey, there's a lot of people out there that really need to work on rebalancing and healing and energizing and empowering their sacral chakra, because if we think of it, the sacral chakra, that's where we give life. Men, that's how you put life into women. If that's not active and that's not going, you're going to notice a lot of your life is just stagnant and stagnating and nothing new and exciting happens, right? I mean, think about after not making love for a few weeks and then you decide to make love and then you have this amazing, hot, spicy, sexy time. The next day, it's like everything's easy, everything's flowing, you're in bliss, it's just euphoric ideas come to you. There's no pressure and there's no pushing and there's no force anymore, right? So sexuality and healing your sexuality and healing your sacral chakra and opening up yourself to feel pleasure. This is why we have a body, This is why we have feelings. This is why we love being touched and we love being hugged and we love being kissed and stuff like that. They're a part of every being on earth. There's nothing controversial about it. Thank you, Joy. And and we have talked about this. So where it says, for example, if you're not in your sexual energy and your sexual creative life force energy is not stimulated and active, you feel lackluster, lifeless, sexually frustrated, blocked, and bored. And then versus if your sacral chakra is activated and awakened and alive and stimulated and activated, you're gonna have an easy time having a lot of orgasms. You're gonna feel aliveness. You're gonna have a surge of vitality. I believe that's why they call it your creative juice and your mojo. You're gonna feel blissful. You're gonna feel free flowing, and you're also gonna have a free flowing nature of imagination and fantasies. So, and euphoric senses of bliss. So it's really, I find it really uncanny that I'm talking about everything and I'm going through my notes and I'm saying my notes page for page, which is just stuff that I just channeled down. So the sacral chakra holds your power of bringing the formless into form. So think about woman, when a man and woman gets together and they have that act of lovemaking, and then the sperm goes into the womb, right, into the uterus, and then there's this process of time where there's this life force energy that takes those two cells and 9 months later turns it into a child that is birthed out into the planet and grows and continuously grows, and not just grows up, but then also has the capacity to give life and to give life and life-giving and life-giving and life-giving, right? So one of the things she wanted me to touch on is, for example, if we were to look at highly creative people, actors and actresses, really famous pop stars and musicians and stuff, this is why even though they're able to create amazing, beautiful art through music and poetry and acting, they always have this duality life of like sex addiction or drug addiction or sorts of addictions, right? So Ishtar, I'm going to show this card again. So she's coming in today and she's basically saying, okay, everyone, this week, let's look at our boundaries. Let's look at the parts of our life that we're not completely happy with, or more so, let's dig deeper and look at the people, look at the places where we work, who we talk to, who we connect with, who we spend time with, what we eat, what we wear, and just say to yourself, even it can be something as picking up an object. What object could I pick up? And right now, I'm just holding a little vial of water from the St. Bridget's well from Ireland. I think it's Lancaster, Ireland, at the St. Bridget's Healing Well, and just say, you know, it's like, does this bring me pleasure? And when I feel it, it does, right? Because for me, when I feel this water, this St. Bridget's water, it takes me back to the experience of being at that sacred well and just looking at the water flow and feeling all the prayers of thousands of people for hundreds of years who's prayed for their loved ones, for them to be better, for them to, who's passed on, for them to have a safe passage back to the afterlife and such. So, and I'm getting tingles. And you just hold an object and be like, you know, does this bring me pleasure? And if it doesn't, be okay to give it away. And this is also with, like, you know, clothes, your clothing, your makeup, what you wear. I know, for example, in my closet, I have a lot of things that I wear that makes me feel very sexy and makes me feel very energetic and makes me feel very alive. And then I have certain pieces of items that I know I just feel so freaking frumpy in it. But it's just that programming, right, of of letting go. So this week, it's all about setting boundaries with yourself and saying, hey, you know what? I want to tighten things up in my life. I want to focus more on my desire. I want to focus more on things that are going to bring me pleasure. And I'm willing to completely release everything and everyone that no longer brings pleasure into my life. And that is your right as a goddess to do these things. So what I'm going to do is, before we close up, and I do have this little mini meditation, like sweatpants, I just gave mine away. LOL. Oh my God, Bridget, that's funny. And so what I'm going to do is, before I close up for tonight, and I hope you guys take the time out to listen to this replay, because our sexuality is our power, especially as women. You know, when you think about the femme fatale, or when we look at all these actresses, like, you know, our singers, like, I mean, Madonna is my superhero, right? And I mean, Madonna is just promiscuous and provocative, and she just really pushes boundaries, there you go, with her sexuality and her way of viewing things, which is completely not in alignment with the cookie cutter programming of how a woman should behave, right? I mean, the silliest thing I've probably ever heard is, I want a lady in the street and a freak in the sheet. That is so hypocritical. So, as we close up for tonight, I'm going to choose one or two people. If you would like to have, so what I'm going to do is pull a card for you. Just say yes, so I know you'd like to get a card pulled for you. What I'm going to do is ask for another goddess to come in to be able to give you a little bit of empowerment around how you personally can start setting boundaries and loving yourself and opening up yourself to be able to feel more pleasure and love and laughter and less of all that, you know, other stuff that we don't need, right? So, Bridget, okay. So, I'm just gonna shuffle here, and I'm gonna ask for the goddesses to come through and to just share one card that would supplement how Bridget, okay, I already have the card in my hand, how Bridget can specifically tune in this week with Ishtar and to be able to help her to break old boundaries and to rebuild new boundaries and to create a sexier, healthier, happier, more pleasurable life for herself. That's a really long question. Oh my God. And you've got Damara. Actually, Damara came up last week as well, and she's about guiding children. And Bridget, what this is saying to me is that there's an inner child in you, right? There's this girl in you where it's almost like I see her like, is it okay for me to do that stuff? You know, is it okay for me to be wild and sensational and be ravishing and to be worshipped and licked and touched? I hope I'm not getting too personal. But there seems to be this innocent side of you where it's like, you have to take control of your life and let that little girl inside of you know that she's safe and she's protected because you're Ishtar. You're going to embody this. You're like Ishtar, like the adult. And you're going to protect her and you're going to be able to have fun and you're going to be able to play and create pleasurable moments for yourself. But to let her know that no matter what you do, again, it's that energy of like unpure, right? Like it's unpure to feel deep pleasure and it's sinful. These are the energies that I'm getting. So just what I would love for you to do and what's channeling through is to actually bring Ishtar through. I don't know if you have Doreen Virtue's Goddess Guidance Oracle deck. I highly recommend it. I've been using this deck since 2008. And you were to take the Ishtar card and the Damara card and sort of do a back and forth conversation where Ishtar is that bold, sensual, sexual, mature adult that can do whatever she wants to. And Damara is that little child within yourself. And to educate her and let her know, like, you know, there are things about you that I love and I cherish and I'm going to always honor and you're always going to be safe and protected. But now here I am as an adult, and as an adult, it's sort of like they're showing me a tree, right? When you're an acorn, there's not really much you can do, but now you're an oak tree. It's natural for you to experience pleasure and to experience earthly pleasure through relationships and lovemaking and having fun and drinking and partying within your boundaries, right? Without thinking that you're going to hurt or tarnish or put this little child inside of yourself through any sort of trauma. So that's what I'm getting for you on this. And there is Karina. I'm going to pull a card for you, Karina, just to ask for this week, which goddess you need to pay attention to, and that you need to work with Ishtar, where you need to create boundaries in your life, and how to help you to experience more fun and more pleasure and such. And this is wild. And the card again is Damara. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little moment just for me to honor Damara coming through. And she is a fury goddess, and she works with children. So when Damara comes in for me, it's always about the inner child, right? And it says here, you're good at helping, counseling, and healing children. Use your skills to help children now. But I'm still getting, like you, Bridget, it seems to be a theme here with the goddesses that I'm pulling up. It's not so much you working with children, Karina. It's more about you working with your inner child and letting that, it's almost like there's this trauma we go through as women, right? Because we're not prepared and we're not equipped with the education. I mean, I know from an Indian background, what I was told about sex was basically when you get married, your husband will show you what to do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Sex education 101. I'm still trying to figure out what's the bird and the bees. The birds and the bees, by the way, I still haven't heard that story. So this is what happens. It's almost like a trauma in itself without even us having to go through like really abusive sexual trauma. This would definitely be the upbringing, the suppression of sexual education with the upbringing, that as a child you're just innocent going through life, and then all of a sudden you're a teenager into your 20s going into your 30s, and then all of a sudden you're a woman and you have to do all these, you know, things, sexual things. And so for a lot of us, it's almost scary, and it's like a duty, and we don't see this as like a gift of our adulthood, right? Procreation. Is there anyone else? Because if you can just say yes for anyone else that would like to get a card tonight. And okay, I'm just gonna wait to see if anyone's gonna say yes. And if not, Joy, I'm gonna do you, Joy, because I know you're here watching. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to Joy. So Joy, asking the goddess to bring an aspect of herself today to help you with boundaries, setting boundaries, and loving yourself, and how you can bring in more pleasure into your life, guilt-free pleasure into your life. Oh, goody, Joy says. Okay. And Joy, your card is... Okay. Joy, you have 2 cards, not 1. And your first card is Mother Mary, expect a miracle. And your second card is Ma'u, which is Mother Earth. Now, it's very interesting because Ishtar isn't seen as a mother goddess. Ishtar, yes, it always happens with you, Joy. We always ask for 1 card and you get 2 or more. I don't know how you do that. So Ishtar is actually not seen as a mother goddess. She is more seen in the sense of a maiden and a woman in her unbridled passion of sensuality and sexuality. So what I'm getting here for you, Joy, what I'm getting here for you is that you're just really in your mothering energy. So Mother Mary says, have faith that your prayers have been heard and are being answered. And I completely understand this, Joy, because we are connected, and I'm not going to share a lot, but I do know that your beloved is not with you at the moment because he's in the nursing home. So I can understand why Mother Mary is saying for you, you will get pleasure from praying. So the Hail Mary, every time Mother Mary comes up, I always go to the Hail Mary. And so you can actually, without having to be with a partner, without having to go through the physical act. You can actually pray, Joy. And if you can focus on your sacral chakra while you're doing that, that can actually help stimulate your sacral chakra. And the interesting thing about it, Mother Mary is smiling as she's saying to me in my ear, she's like, I had the Immaculate Conception. So she would have done lovemaking with God, which is on an energetic level, not a physical level. That makes so much sense to where you are, Joy. And Ma'u, who is the African goddess, and she's the African mother goddess of giving life. So it was actually said that Ma'u made humans out of clay, and then she breathed life into them. So what I'm getting here is where you are right now, and I'm just feeling a heavy heart being lifted right now, is that both Mother Mary and both Ma'u would love to support you right now with that energy. I'm doing the mother thing with him while he's in rehab, the praising. Yes, Joy. And what Mother Mary's saying too is you need to also, as much as you love your beloved, and you're being a mom to him, you need to set some boundaries for yourself, and you need to pray to nourish yourself and fill yourself with energy. And also Ma'u, who's calling you out to nature, to be able to touch the trees and to touch the leaves and to touch the flowers. So lovemaking is not just in the sense of the physical specifically for you, Joy. It's about being able to feel pleasure from nature. So Ma'u is showing me like these beautiful trees and just kind of running your fingers down the bark and feeling that energy of the tree and hugging the tree. I know a lot of people think we're hippies for hugging trees, but the trees have energy, and I wish a lot of people would understand that, and this is where the saying comes that I just wish people can start appreciating each other more and using things instead of appreciating things and using each other, right? Lovemaking is empathic. Yes, Joy, thank you. So I hope I've definitely covered everything that I've channeled on Ishtar, and I really hope this week's goddess, because I understand a lot of people aren't yet comfortable with speaking with their sexuality or focusing on healing that sexuality. But the cool thing is that when you choose to do and you choose to heal and you choose to balance your sacral chakra and to let that life force energy activate, it's almost like you get this extra power that just pushes your projects. Think about the seed, right? And if you plant a seed on the earth, this is what Ishtar is saying to me. You plant the seed in the earth, and then all of a sudden there is no life force energy. That seed's never going to grow. It's never going to shoot up into a beautiful plant or a rose bush or an orange tree or whatever it needs to, right? So your sacral chakra, it's like that life force energy that's in there, that when it's damaged or it's underactive or it's deadened, nothing can't really grow. So when we work on healing that sacral chakra energy and we work on activating it and having the life force energy vibrate and just be really healthy is the word that I'm getting, then just imagine your projects or your relationships or your business, or I'm getting for a lot of people too, finances. Look at your finances as a seed, right? And just imagine this energy just pushing through and growing everything without you having to physically, and this is madness, she's saying. It's madness to plant a seed in the soil and think you can make it grow. That's not the way it works. You nailed it too. Well done. It's time for others to understand this part of you. Sorry, Joy. Regardless of how you've been brought up, you have an inner, who knows what is good for you, and it's time to tune in to what makes you happy. Yes, love thyself first, and all else will fall into place with all of your relationships, especially the relationship with yourself, number one, right? Because and this is another falsehood that we have, where we're programmed to please everybody and make everybody happy and expect somebody to please us in return. So I would really love for us to see this week focusing on our self-pleasure as a priority, and then saying, okay, now that I've pleasured myself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually as well, and now I'm full of this energy, I'm full of this life force energy, who do I want to pour this into, or who do I choose to share this with, okay, instead of just giving it all away. So there's this saying, don't give away the farm for a smile. All right. So thank you everybody for coming in tonight and for listening to the messages from Goddess Ishtar to all of you. And I had so much fun dressing up as Ishtar today. And I think I'm going to walk around like this for a little bit tonight. And I highly encourage you, it doesn't matter which goddess it is. If you ever want to bring in the energy, instantly bring in the energy of a goddess, just work with makeup and dress up. And that's why play and dressing up is so important, and it's so powerful as well. So wishing you all a beautiful, pleasurable, and loving good night. And kisses to everybody. And I'll see you guys next week, Tuesday, for the next Goddess of the Week. Take care. Bye-bye.